In this EliteWorks video, we're going to be going over and covering the image widget and how you can add images to your website. So in order to access the image widget, we're going to go to the image menu on the left hand side. We're going to click on it and then we're going to go to media. Now within media, there's a couple different media widgets that we can select. One of them is images. We're going to go ahead and click on image and we're going to drag it out onto our website. Now, by default, we're going to see a widget container area here with our image not available by default. So the first things first, we want to select the image that we want on our website. Now, the way that we do that is we click on our settings menu and we're going to click on select image. Now, from here, it's going to load up the EliteWorks file manager. Now, what if I don't have the image in my file manager yet? Well, we need to first add our image to the file manager, then we can add it to our site. So there's two ways I can do it. If I've got my file location on my computer pulled up, I can simply drag my image into it and it will load it up. Or I can click on upload files, which will give me a file explorer on my computer where I can select an image, double click, and it will add it in. So those are the two ways you can add images into the file manager. Now, once I've got, let's say I want to pick my Three Guys home banner, and I'm going to double click, and you can see it's going to upload the image into it by default. Now from here, within my settings, there's a couple things that I need to set. Now the image widget itself is relatively simple, minus a couple things. First off, now that we've selected the image, we can choose a link if we desire. So if we want to make it so that when someone clicks on that particular image, it sends them to a page or a product, we can click on add a link and it's going to pull up our standard link menu, which is the same across all of the widgets. I can also toggle on this pop-up image on click. What that does is, we've all seen a website where you click on an image, it makes it bigger and pulls it up and it kind of takes up your whole screen. That's what will enable that functionality when you click on the image. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do that. We're going to turn that on. And if I go to settings, now settings, this is where we can kind of define the scaling of our image and how it shows. So if we're utilizing responsive, I can tell it that I want it to fit to the container, or if I want it to be the image's designated width or the designated height. Let's click done and I'll move this over so you can see here how I can make the image skewed based off of how I drag the image. So I can make it kind of good, I can make it wide, and I can manipulate it. Now if I want it to pull, let's say based off of how the image's resolution is by default, the actual image, without eyeballing it or adjusting it, we can go ahead and we can put it in like a column, for example. And if I go to responsive, now notice how it's very, very skewed. It's super long, and we know that's not how it's adjusted. So if I go to settings and I go to the settings tab, you see how it says fit to container. Now I can go to fit to width. So it's going to keep the scale of the image based off of the width that it's established. Now if I want to do full height, notice how it's going to stretch the image in relationship to the length of the column, which we don't want that. It's going to skew our image here in this particular case. So we're going to go to full width, so fitting that within the width, and we're going to click done. Now from here, now watch, if I expand this column, see how it's going to auto adjust that image. So it's going to make it responsive based off of that sizing. So just dependent upon what you're trying to do with that particular image is going to be dependent upon if you want to do it freeform, where you're moving it around and kind of manipulating the image, utilizing your eyes, or if you want to have it be responsive and that dedicated sizing that the image is initially. Now let's go ahead and let's duplicate this, and I'm going to do another technique with this image, and we're going to make this one just freeform. So I'm going to click freeform. Now notice I can manipulate it around. We're going to make it a little bit smaller. Now when it comes to this image, let's adjust some of the the styles behind it and making how we want it to look. So if I click on styles, you're going to see I have a container and I've got the image. So if I go to the image, I can add in my background colors. So if I want to make it a background color is red, it's going to make it red. Now in this particular case, we don't see any red. Well, that's because none of the image is transparent. If I pick a PNG, like let's say that has transparent around it and then just some words, and I set background to red, it would then show as red. So if I go to, let's see if I have one, a logo here. Here we go. So if I do this and click done, and you can see how it's transparent. And if we set the background, you guys can see how it's pulling that background now because of the way that it's been set. So let's undo these changes and we'll go back to our main image here. Now when it comes to presenting an image, there's a couple simple things that you can do to really help the presentation of your image kind of stand out on your website, and that's adding what we call effects or depth. And if we go to style and we go to our container here and then we click on effects, one of the ones that we really like to use, and you'll see this very common amongst websites, is utilizing a glow. So if I click on this, I can go to some of our default glows that we have. Notice if I click this one, it's a little darker. The one in the middle tends to be gives a really nice effect, and if I click done and done, you'll notice now, see how the image has some shadowing behind it, kind of makes it stand out from the page as opposed to just having a hard edge. Now by default the color's a little bit dark, so let's say we want to lighten up that shadow on the edge, not make it so apparent that it's there. So if we click on it, we go to our container, we're going to go back to our effects, and we're going to click on our little gear here, and notice where we've got color. So we're just going to click on our color here. We're going to lighten this up. So I'm going to go to swatches and I'm going to pick this lighter gray. I'm going to click done and done. Now notice, see how it's very subtle, very light, but it's giving a kind of a depth to that image, a good presentation behind that image. So now if we publish this and go to view live, remember we toggled when we click on it that it pops up big. So that's that effect. When I click on it, it's going to give me a full size image, take up the screen so you can get a better picture. If we toggle that off, then it won't allow us to click it and have that pop up. So that's a couple different things that you can utilize and how you can manipulate your images. Now one last thing, just like all widgets, we can go in and we can adjust your different border effects, like let's say on a hover. So if we go to hover styles and let's say we want to add a border, we can make like a border here, and then when I double click, you can see how when I hover the image, it creates a border. So I can create different effects. Now if I want to make that hover, right now it's really fast, almost instantaneous. Let's say I want to go into it and make the transition a little bit longer. So like let's say it's a 0.8, or we'll do 1 second here, and then on the hover we're gonna do 1 second as well. Click done. Now when we go into it, oh, we've set it onto the wrong one. Let's go to image and go to transitions, and we're gonna set it to 1. Hit done. Now you can see how the transition is slower. So if we go to publish, go to view live, you can see how that transition is slower, gives that slower effect because you've slowed it down. So there's a lot of different things that you can utilize. Play around with those styles and you can make them and manipulate them in a way that you want them to be seen. And then once you're done with that, you can create those styles into themes, and you can create it under your themes here. That's kind of what we have that should get you started. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to our support group. We're happy to help you kind of manage what you need to do on your website and kind of put you in the right direction if you need any help. Thanks again for your time. We'll see you guys in the next video.